Alright, what's going on everyone on YouTube? NES Ruler, welcome to yet another review. If you guys were able to check out my review that I posted a few days ago, you would have noticed that I said I was got another documentary review coming up, and here we go. So I'm going to be doing another review. So if you guys, follow me on my channel, you would know that I'm currently in film school. I'm in my last semester, so I'm very close to graduating, and I have a really big interest to write about cinema in some sort or another, either a publication or just as I've been doing now as a hobby. I'm more than willing to work on film sets if need be. But I would really like to explore my writing about cinema further. So on top of my film degree, I've been taking a bunch of journalism classes on the side just to freshen my writing skills and that type of mindset, because in the film department where I go to school, I've taken a whole bunch of film analysis classes, and that has to do with long-term writing, long-form writing, 5,000, 3,000, whatever amount of words, pages. So I wanted to try to adapt my writing into a shorter form compared to what I've been doing, which is a lot longer form writing. So I took some journalism classes, and one of my classes I took a media ethics and law class, and this documentary I think really hits on some of these topics that I learned about in this class. And we actually went over this case a little bit, but not in too much detail. But since this documentary focuses on Chicago, I think it's a very personal case to me. It's not in... If you guys know anything about Chicago, it's broken up into little neighborhoods like a whole bunch of other big cities, and people associate themselves with these neighborhoods. So, even though this is not in a neighborhood particularly where I grew up, it's still in the city that I live in, so I think I have a little bit of a personal connection to it. It's not really much of a bias, but we'll get into that in a second. So, the documentary was sent to me by IFC and is part of their Sundance Selects line of films, and that is A Murder in the Park. So this film basically follows a murder that occurred in 1983 in the Washington Park neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. So at the end of every summer, there's a huge, summer blowout party in this neighborhood. And in 1983, after the full day of, of drinking and having fun and all that kind of stuff, some of the people broke into this pool to swim at like 1 o'clock in the morning. It's not that big of a deal. Cops around this time are just assuming that these kids are just trying to have some fun by swimming late at night, so they didn't think anything about it. But there was these bleachers overlooking the pool, and there was a male and a female sitting talking while they were watching these people swim. And as they were talking, someone came up to them and shot them and killed both of them. I think the documentary says they were shot each 3 times apiece. And the man that was in question was a man that goes by the name of Anthony Porter. And Anthony Porter, he has a very his name is very well known around here simply because of this case and what happened. So Anthony Porter was accused of the murders, and there's a whole bunch of witnesses that said they saw that he did it. So he went to jail, and he was convicted of the death penalty. And as time gone on, a journalism department in Northwestern University, which is one of the best journalism schools in the world, decided to do a reenactment of the murders. And there was a whole bunch of ethical issues that were going on here with the reenactment, things like structures that weren't there originally, and the places they were standing and things like that they didn't even notice or didn't even mention in the report, which is a big no-no if you're a reporter. You have to think about all the facts that are presented towards you, especially in investigational journalism. You really have to think about all the cases and all the different pieces of the case, especially when they're doing this. The case happened in 1982, and they were doing this reenactment in 1999. So 17 years later, they started to do this reenactment to see if all the witnesses and all the facts actually lined up. So this journalism department this journalism class, and this professor somehow convinced the society that Anthony Porter was actually not guilty of the case, and another man by the name of L. Story Simon actually was the one who did the shootings. Now, this is where the documentary and the story gets very interesting. So, L. Story Simon did a confession saying that he did the shootings. Now, as we start to learn, he was a little bit of he liked to do a little bit of crack, and he was interrogated in a way that, if you guys watch my Paradise Lost reviews, he was interrogated in a way that he just wanted to get out of the situation that he was in. So he admitted to this murder, even though he really didn't do it. And this this journalism class and all this started to put pressure on Story Simon to admit to something that he didn't do. So Porter was freed, he was pardoned, and L. Story went to jail. And that's where the huge ethical issue comes into play here. You guys are still understanding what's going on. Anthony Porter did the crime. The cops got it right the first time. There's no doubt about it that these journalism students and professor had an agenda that they wanted to try and do something with the death penalty by getting it taken away in the state of Illinois. And Anthony Porter's case was the perfect opportunity to sway the government to try and get this death penalty taken away. Now you're probably thinking, how the hell is a class, a college journalism class, going to persuade a whole state to take away the death penalty? And, the motions that these journalists and professor put in place to make L. Story Simon seem like the guilty one is really, really interesting, such so as one day in jail, Anthony Porter and L. Story's ex-wife's nephew were in a fight. Anthony Porter saved his life, and the nephew said he owed Porter a favor in the future. So this nephew called his aunt and told them that she should tell the investigators that she was with L. Story Simon that night that the shooting happened, which is totally not true. She was just lying for her nephew to get him out of jail. It's just lies and lies and lies that were happening to make L. Story Simon seem guilty when it was actually Anthony Porter. And because Anthony Porter was pardoned, there was nothing that he could do about it. After they found out that he was actually the one who committed the murders, there was nothing they really could do about it because he was pardoned. So L. Story Simon goes to jail, and he serves 15 years in jail, 13, 14 years in jail, and he just got released like a year and a half ago. I remember it was a huge story around here that he was set free because they found out that they effed up pretty bad by sending this innocent man to jail and having Anthony Porter still be able to walk the streets as a killer. So, like I said, I really think this is an interesting case in ethics, journalist ethics especially, because we see these journalists and this professor have an agenda by trying to get rid of the death penalty by framing this innocent man and getting this man who's on death row free. And things like movie deals, book deals were promised, and all this kind of stuff to make these people who were in a iffy situation sign affidavits for things that they didn't actually mean or weren't actually true. So this murder happened for nothing. Anthony Porter is still walking the streets. L. Story Simon, because he gave a false confession, had to sit in jail for 15 years, and he was let free not that long ago. So it was overall a really, really interesting documentary. I think the way it was presented, it wasn't as effective as, let's say, Paradise Lost was, but I think it does the job of what it's trying to achieve by saying that how journalism ethics could be used as an agenda and not for telling the news, especially it was a freaking class. I think that's the biggest issue I had with it, that it was a class. It wasn't even a publication. It was just these journalism students who, got into Northwestern, which is a really good journalist school, so they must be doing something. But they didn't dig deep into things like they were supposed to, like their job attends. If you're going to be an investigative journalist, you have to cover all the facts, and the thing that they were skipping some of this evidence is total ludicrous. And I don't think it really went into all the things that this professor did to persuade his students to try and get this death penalty taken away. I don't know. It was a really interesting documentary. You guys get a chance to pick this up, I'd say check it out. It's not the most amazing documentary. It's not the most effective documentary, but I think it's worth a watch if you're into ethics and journalism and having a wrong person framed and all that kind of thing. So check it out. So thank you again, everybody, for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And as always, you can follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/NESRuler22. Hope everybody's doing well, and I'll talk to you guys soon. See you guys.